of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Here.
Present.
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 Thank you. All right. First one, we have guests, and if Economic Development can come to the table, I believe that they have guests with them. We'll bring them to the table first. All right. Thank you. This is ordinance number 388-2025 by Council Members Starr, Hairston, and Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the commissioner of purchases and supplies to acquire and reconvey properties presently owned by JSAA-CC LLC and/or its designee located at 7515 Cedar Avenue for the purpose of entering into the chain of title prior to the adoption of tax increment finance legislation authorized under section 5709.41 of the revised code for the African Town Plaza project. Ms. Rose.
Good morning.
Ed said he doesn't care if we listen to this.
Not yet, Troy.
There we go. Okay. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board. I'm here today as Director McNair is away on a well-deserved vacation. I've brought with me Bobby Bruno, who has been diligently working on this project, with Mr. Sosin, who is an award-winning developer here in our community, and I will pass it over to Bobby to speak on the project.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is legislation for chain of title for a TIF project. The project site is 7515 Cedar Avenue. So this is just west of 77th Street on Cedar Avenue. That's a 0.75 acre site.
Do we control the slides?
Here, right there. So you should be able to do it there. This is 388-2025.
This is for consideration, intro passage.
That's the worst.
Hopefully these actually turn this far.
I hope. I haven't even tried.
So this is a 3/4 of an acre site with a 47,000 square foot structure on it, historically used as a YMCA through the 1940s through the 1970s. It sat vacant for at least a decade, probably closer to 15 years. So the project, so JSAA-CC LLC is the entity that owns that property and that will do a title swap with the city to enter into the chain of title for this for the future TIF project. The actual real estate project that will occur there is a redevelopment of the building into African Town Plaza. And so this is going to be a mixed-use development with 19 apartment units, some commercial office spaces, as well as a community gathering space. It'll feature a multimedia room, commercial kitchen, and it'll be programmed. In terms of job creation, 5 jobs to run the property. There might be other jobs created through that office space, but that would be speculative, so we won't count that within our 5 jobs for this project. And so the request for this legislation is to enter a 30-year, 100% non-school TIF as a separate piece of legislation later once we're in that chain of title. That would be a benefit to the developer of about $2 million. Even with that tax foregoance by the city, it'll be an increase of about $2.7 million in property taxes, income taxes, and pilots over the course of the term. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Mr. Sosin, our developer here.
Did Mr. Sosin want to make any comments or any remarks?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is
Sosa. I'm a developer in the city of Cleveland. And, sorry about that. I specialize in saving a lot of historic buildings in Cleveland. This will be my number 5. Most of my projects are listed on the United States National Register of Historic Places. I've done one YMCA on the west side. This will be my second YMCA. And I did the Metro Loft in your area. This particular project is very, very exciting for me. The building itself was built in 1942. It was built during segregation, and it was built specifically for black folks. And also, it was the only building in Cleveland that had a summer camp for black kids back in the segregation area. So this building was condemned and almost demoed. I was happy to get it in time so I can save it because it has a lot of history, of Cleveland history in that building. A lot of our leaders grew up in that YMCA, the Stoke brothers, Mayor Mike White, and some of the council people, and also the councilman for Cuyahoga County lives in the area, and he grew up in that building. So this is going to be an exciting project, apartments, offices, event center, and I call it African Town Plaza because my vision for that area is to create an African town. Like we have Little Italy, we have Asian Town. I want to have an African town in Cleveland because we have a lot of Africans that lives in the northern, in Ohio period, and especially in Cleveland area. So this will be a good thing for everybody. I'm so excited about it. We're going to have commercial kitchen where people can come to learn how to cook African dishes. And across the street, we're going to have incubator offices for small businesses that are starting out. So a good project.
Thank you so much. Before I go into my colleagues for questions, this was a historical building, and actually I've driven by there several times. The old YMCA, the executive director used to be named Richard Floyd, and it has a lot of history in there. So hopefully you'll capture some of that history. That area also has a lot of history. So I'm glad that you're renovating and restoring that building. It's quite frankly been sitting there for a long time, and
Yes.
it's right on the border of Ward 6 and Ward 5. So we're glad that something's being done with this. Councilman Anthony Hairston, did you have any comments on this piece of legislation?
No comments. Mr. Chair, I'm okay with it moving forward, although we received this, Thursday or Friday, for the request for intro and pass. This is the first of two, so we will hear the second part at some point. And so we'll just make sure that we get that in time enough so that way we can run it through the process. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Starr in favor of this? I know his name is on the legislation, I'm just trying to make sure we ask.
Yes, sir, he did provide a letter of support.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding 388-2025?
Sure.
Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Good to see you. Chairman and Mr. Soto, you did the YMCA in Ohio City, right?
I did, yes.
What a really cool project. That is a really neat
I
building.
did 2 projects in Ohio City.
Okay.
I did Detroit Loft as well.
Yeah,
It's right on Detroit and 28.
that's right. That's right. That was a great project, and it's holding its value today. How many years later?
20 years.
20 some years
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. No, I have full support. This looks really great, and I'm curious. You know, I know we have a growing African population in Cleveland, which is really exciting. And one of the big things that we talk about is ensuring that as looking for ways to grow our population, a big component of that is coming from newcomers to the United States, right? So I'm really excited to see that we're thinking about how do we create spaces for those African newcomers to Cleveland. So I really want to watch this and see how we can be supportive, not only here, but as the time goes on for this project. Because one of the things that we learn is one of the components that we retain folks is by building a sense of community, right? They feel community support, and they're more likely to stay within an area or within a city. Councilwoman Santana does an incredible job at Centrovia, providing a similar kind of model as well. So I look forward to hearing more about this down the road. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions for Mr. Sosa? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 388-2025 stands approved. It will be heard for passage, intro and passage this evening. Thank you, Mr. Sosa.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next, we have ordinance number 242-2025 by council members McCormick, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the addition of certain property located at 2164 through 2214 West 25th Street to the Northeast Ohio Advanced Energy District, accepting and approving a petition and plan from a property owner in the district identifying a special energy improvement project, declaring it necessary to conduct the special energy improvement project, providing for the assessment of the cost of such special energy improvement project, authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a cooperative agreement and a special assessment agreement to implement the project, and declaring an emergency. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I will pass it to Bobby, who will provide the table with information around the project.
Thank you. With me, representing the developer is Mr. Goss, General Counsel for the developer. So this is the site of the former Voss Aerospace Manufacturing Facility on West 25th, about 1 to 2 blocks south of Lorraine Road on West 25th Street. This is legislation for property assessed clean energy financing, which would be financing clean energy improvements to the building through assessments on their property tax over and above existing property taxes. So a little bit about the project. It's going to be a mixed-use development featuring 129 apartments, 13,000 square feet of commercial space, restaurants, retail, possible office, entertainment uses, and 115 parking spaces. This is led by the developer MRN Limited, and this is a PACE financing deal that will be financed through the Cleveland Port. So it's going to be $8 million in financing coming from the port to the project. It'll be paid back over a 23-year period. Some of the improvements that'll be funded, roofing, HVAC, windows, insulation, things like that. A lot of building envelope type improvements. And this was approved by the Energy Improvement District before it got to the city and for legislation. And with that, happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Mr. Goss here.
Mr. Goss, did you have any remarks?
Just on behalf of the developer, this continues our long commitment to the city of Cleveland from East 4th Street, the United 25th Building. This is a great opportunity for us to expand the neighborhood on 25th Street even further south from our property. And, you know, we're excited to use clean energy financing to even make the building more efficient. And the plans have us exceeding, not just meeting, but exceeding both the city green building standards and the PACE standards as well.
Thank you. And like I said, it's budget neutral for us. Basically, it's just a PACE grant. How many PACE grants do we have in the city now? Not many. Only about, what, 5?
Yeah, not many. I don't know what the exact number is.
Probably 5 or 6 active ones.
Okay. It's a great tool. I just don't understand why more people don't utilize it.
Yeah.
So it's great. This is the Marin
Yes.
group? Okay.
Correct.
All right. Councilman Hairston, you relieved this from DPS?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. As you said, this is budget neutral for us, no cost by the city of Cleveland. However, these are always important for us to hear these through the process so that way we can understand the project, know what's going on as we are asked to provide our support. Happy to support this project today. Had a conversation with the developer. Also, my colleagues would ask about this project and fully support and ask the committee for their for passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Chairman Hairston for leaving this here today and the MRN team. We've been working with them on a really exciting project. As was noted, this building has been vacant for
technically vacant 3 years, but underused for many more than that.
Yes, so I mean, this is a building that's really ripe for reuse, Mr. Chairman, and really excited to support this legislation here today. I second your comment. I'm interested to kind of learn more why more folks aren't using this. It seems like a great tool. So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe we'll catch offline with the assistant director to better understand that. But full support, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I agree. I would love to, maybe I understand the mechanics of it. Maybe it's just that not enough people know about it. But we'd love to get more mechanics or a PACE 101 so that we can start educating some of our business owners. Okay? All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 242-2025 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, Ms. Rose. We'll go to community development. This is ordinance number 719-2024 by council members Hairston and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend sections 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of ordinance number 482-2022, passed May 25, 2022, relating to establishing the entire city of Cleveland as a community reinvestment area. And I believe Mr. Bango is going to present, or do we have other members of your team?
I'm presenting with the director's on our way.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations on your housing fund.
Thank you. Very excited about it. Council President, if you want, I can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, please get
Good use of
started,
time.
and then once she gets here, she can go jump in.
Okay, great. To the committee, please thank you for having us here today. So I kind of want to do a couple things. First, I just want to give an overview of the tax abatement program as it currently stands and talk about the progress we've made in the first year of enacting the latest ordinance. Then I'll talk a little bit about the changes that this amendment to Ordinance 482-2023 -2022 brings to the table. And then I have 3 suggested amendments that I'd like to mention to council. So first, in a normal year, we're processing between 200 and 250 applications, reviewing 200 to 250 applications for tax abatement annually. This year, we reviewed 550 applications. And as you know, that's largely because of the grandfathered provisions that are in Ordinance 482-2022. So in a normal year, when we only are looking at 200 applications, this year we sifted through 550. We approved 291 of those, and we only currently have 80 applications that we're still waiting to make a decision on. Of those 291 applications that we approved this year, 260 of them were grandfathered applications. So that is my way to tell you that the new program is beginning to take effect, and it's starting to affect programs that are seeking tax abatement, but there's still quite a bit of backlog of grandfathered applications that are being considered. There's roughly 160 that submitted in time for grandfathered, and we're waiting for them to finish the project before we can approve it. Other things that we did this year is we transitioned from a completely paper-based process to now using Power Apps. And that has helped us really to improve our efficiency, going from reviewing 200 applications annually to 500. We're much better off than we were a year ago. And then finally, this year's goals is we're looking to get to a 14-day response time for when someone submits to when we make a decision. We're continuously trying to improve our Power App system. And then this year, I'm hoping to begin audit enforcement around making sure that projects are meeting their meeting aging in place criteria, affordability, and most importantly, short-term rentals. Before I continue into this ordinance, Director, okay. So this ordinance is really proposing 4 separate changes. First, the state of Ohio views our community reinvestment area, or CRA, as one CRA. The way this ordinance is set up, the old ordinance, is 3 separate CRAs. What this change does is consolidates it into one CRA with 3 sub-CRAs underneath of it, essentially bringing our program and policy in line with how the state looks at the City of Cleveland's community reinvestment area. The second change is Ordinance 482-2022 says that the housing officer is the commissioner of the Division of Neighborhood Development. That position and that division no longer exists. It changes that to the bureau chief of the, it says Division of Housing Development, but one of my amendment suggestions will be changing that to Bureau of Housing Development, so it's correct. The third thing it does is it allows us the opportunity to collect fees, application fees. The reason why we're proposing this is we're not intending to implement fees now, and fees do have to go before the Board of Control. But this new tax abatement program is a lot more complicated than the previous one. Previously, all you had to do was submit a completed project, evidence that it's done, building permits, and proof that you meet the green building standard. Now we have to figure out what geography are you in, what portion is being abated, what portion's not being abated, are there affordable units being required, what is that AMI affordability, is it an age-in-place house? There's a lot of other stuff in place. We have a second full-time staff member that we've brought on to help with that, and in the event that this winds up becoming more cumbersome, our intention is to use those application fees to support staff and other type of activities along with the program. And the final thing that this ordinance does is it allows us not only to revoke tax abatement for properties that are operating illegally, for instance, operating a short-term rental when they should be operating a regular rental property. It allows us to collect taxes for the years that we know that they've been operating that property in a way that is not allowed by the current ordinance. So those are the four primary changes. If it's okay now, I'd like to suggest three separate amendments.
Please proceed.
So the first is for Section 5, it says Division of Housing Development. That should say Bureau of Housing Development. I'd like to make that change.
So,
Yes.
Did you have it written out anywhere?
Yes, I do have it written out.
Could we get it so that we get a copy and then do the attorneys have it?
Yes, I can share that as soon as we're done.
If we could get Inez to make a copy for all of us while you continue to print it, and then we'll make sure that everybody gets a copy.
Okay, sure.
If you can give it to Inez.
Okay. Yeah, I just need to write it down.
What number
Oh,
is he referring to?
this is ordinance number 719-2024. Is it in? Are they in the notes? Did you put it in the notes, maybe? Yeah, but I didn't know if you might have put an addendum in the notes.
To me, this is shorthand, so I
Okay.
just need to
All
write
right.
it out.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So the second is for Section 4, it currently reads, one moment. It currently reads, the Director of the Department of Community Development is authorized to set and collect application fees. I would like to change that to set and collect application fees which shall be deposited into a fund approved by the Director of Finance. And then the third change I'd like to recommend, and this is something that came for us from the county after the original hearing with this, I think it was June of 2024, is that currently reads in Section 7 as, or that the property taxes have become delinquent. And our recommendation is to change that to, or that the property taxes have become certified delinquent, which is a more specific, easier way to determine when a property is actually behind on its taxes.
Okay. All right. Major changes? Major changes? Or is it in line to bring you in line with what you guys already do?
I think most
Or
of
what
these
the
changes.
state requires?
Yeah, this is just, I think, in line to bring us with what the state requires us to do. It's important that our policy be viewed the same way that the state views our program. And the other changes are more or less just quality of life changes so that we don't have to come back to the table later to make these changes when we decide to, say, implement a fee.
Are there, couple of questions. Why are you getting more applications than in the past?
Sure.
Because they're trying to be grandfathered in, or?
Correct, yes, that's right.
Okay. All right.
And that stopped this past year, Chair.
Okay. Okay. The other thing is, how much are you projecting collecting in fees? And because this is not a general fund department, where would the fees go and how would the fees be used?
To the chair. So the fees would be used strictly for either staffing for the tax abatement program or any administrative cost that comes with the tax abatement program. we had had a conversation internally and with Councilman Hairston about what we envision those fees looking like. My suggestion was $50 per unit for single-family application and $100 per unit for each affordable housing unit in a multifamily project. With our current expectation, which I'm assuming it'll be 200 applications a year moving onward back to normal, that would be about $17,000 annually to the department. Not enough for a full-time staff person, but enough for some auxiliary support in the event that we even do that. And I want to be clear, that's not a priority. Implementing a fee system is not a priority for 2025, and it may be a priority for 2026, and this is the reason why. One, it's going to take a lot of time and effort to verify these short-term rentals, digging data, clarifying with the county. And then in addition to that, now we have a program that requires that every multifamily project have a certain percentage of its units be affordable at 100% of the area median income or less. That's not a lot of work now, but what I'd like to do is make sure we're following up on those at least once every 3 years. So 15 years into this program, we'll probably be reviewing, about 50 properties annually to ensure they're in compliance with the program. And this means not only communicating with the owner of the building, but getting tenant information and checking rents versus what our maximum allowable rents would be at 100% AMI. So as you can imagine, this could be a considerable amount of work to take on as a result of 482-2022.
All right. What is it called? The Bureau of Housing?
The Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Housing Development.
Okay, so you wanted to make an amendment to change that. Is that part of the department realignment that you guys recently did?
Yes, the position, the housing officer, as it was known and noted, that position does not exist anymore. There's no commissioner and no division, and that's what that speaks to.
So approximately a year ago, I know that, Director, you wanted to realign and redesign your department and move from commissioners to, I believe, assistant administrators? Or
To
what?
bureau chief.
Bureau chiefs? So who would now be the appointed authority that would actually handle that role? And who was it before?
It will be Tony Vango that is taking it over, taking that role over, and James Green is a previous commissioner for that previous division that existed where tax abatement sat under it.
Why do we only have one? And is Mr. Bangle an appointed authority?
To the chair, I'm not an appointed authority, but the Ohio Revised Code requires that legislative authorities deem a specific individual in the government administering the program to be the housing officer, one person in particular.
So I'm just want to raise this red flag because that's where I do have some concern, because usually an appointed authority, and just for the listening public, one of the reasons that we used to have commissioners, and I know that director wanted to change and realign her staff, is so that you can have that institutional knowledge, and if Mr. Bango for some reason hits the lottery and leaves or whatever, then who's our housing officer? And that's why it always used to be a civil service employee. Why would we move away from that? And if we are moving away from that, why not have two so that we can have backups? And is it legally allowable to have backups?
So I'll address some of that. Functionally, it's the same role. It's the same role. Bureau chief equals what commissioner used to equal. They're still under civil service protections. It's not an appointed position. These are civil service protected positions. Both of them are. So just like it was previously, if a previous commissioner left, we would replace that commissioner. That role would be taken over by that new commissioner. It is just in line with the reorg. So functionally, there is no change. It's just that that role, which is referenced in this legislation. It just simply does not exist at this point.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to understand. Excuse me, just making sure we understand, I'm level setting, trying to understand. The CD is complicated. So you said that an appointed authority or a person or a legislative body can appoint a person to be that housing officer. And what I'm getting at is, and I hear what the director's saying, is that all of you guys are at will. Is it better to have an appointed authority or a civil service position to oversee that because of the nature of you guys being at will, whereas these other folks are civil service protected?
So they are civil service. The bureau chiefs
So
are civil service
Mr. Bengal
protected.
is civil service protected,
Correct.
so he is an actual appointed authority then. Commissioners were appointed authorities, so we got rid of those titles. So because he's civil service protected, he's not an appointed authority, but he's basically part of the institution. So you leave, assistant director, and I hear you got an assistant director that may be leaving.
Yes.
If I'm hearing right. All the assistant director and directors leave, we still have a person on site to do this. Okay.
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, what necessitated the change? Just trying to understand.
The change to a bureau?
Yeah.
A bureau system? I will be honest, it was a conversation that we had during the reorg, and I was told that there was not much appetite for making additional commissioners. My reorg called for, instead of 3 divisions, it would have been 6 divisions. And I was told that there probably wasn't an appetite to add 3 more commissioner positions. So functionally, I did not care what they were called so long as the organization worked in the flow of the reorg.
Okay. One of the things that I do want to say that I hope that everybody recognizes in City Hall is we have some employees that really have a lot of institutional knowledge. And Mr. Bango is starting to gain a tremendous amount as well. But I just, you know, and I'm going to pivot to my colleague, Councilman Mike Polensek, in a minute. A lot of times, departments reorg and they kind of diminish the role of some people that really know the ins and outs of this. And one of the reasons that I asked is why not have backups is because why not have more people that can actually have that role? And is it legally allowable to have more than one housing person? Even if Mr. Bangle is at the top of the food chain, how do we have a succession? How do we make sure that there's something in place that we can still have other people that have the opportunity to do that? Because I'm huge on if Mr. Bango leaves or whatever, we should always have these positions embedded because they're too important and we can't wait 6 months or something to have somebody to be our housing officer if one person leaves.
Yeah. Our goal was to create as little difference and change functionally in the legislation. So I have not asked the question to our legal team if it is legally permissible to have a second. But if you have comments on that, I'm more than open to bring a second name if permissible. But go ahead, Tony.
To the chair, this conversation was had quite a while ago. I want to say it was April or March of 2024, but I think very similarly to you in this regard. Like, if something unfortunate were to happen to me or if I were to take a new position somewhere else, it would cause an issue where we would have to hire someone new in this role before we could start formally producing tax abatement applications and that sort of and that sort of thing. I floated a couple different language suggestions when we were originally drafting this ordinance, and I can't remember the exact language, and I don't have the ORC memorized off the top of my head, but I believe the law department's response was it has to be a designated individual, because we tried to have the language set up to be like the bureau chief of the Bureau of Housing Development or an individual appointed by the director of the Department of Community Development.
But don't we have a committee that reviews all of these applications?
We do.
We do, yes. To the chair, it's the Housing Council.
Okay. Still got my wheels are turning, but I'm going to go to a couple of my colleagues for questions. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to understand this as well as anyone, and I want to say to the administration as well that it'd be very helpful as the viewing public to really explain this in layman's terms so people can understand it that are watching this. So you're going to create one CRA for the entire city, correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Community Reinvestment Act.
And through the chair to the councilman, that's the way the state already looks at it. They
Okay.
they don't acknowledge our system as we currently have it set up in this ordinance.
Okay. So that's part of your amendments that you're proposing to us.
Correct.
But then you mentioned there's two or three other sub-CRAs. Explain that in more detail.
Sure.
I'll
Okay.
hop in here. So functionally, there's no change. There's no change to the program. This is updating, that when we redid this a year or two ago, this is really just updating the language to be in line. So when we were updating it, there were 3 categories. That was the opportunity neighborhoods, the middle neighborhoods, and the market rate neighborhoods. That is what the tax abatement legislation, that's what it's based on.
Yes.
So that original legislation amending this program says that there are 3 different, there's 3 different categories.
Right. So those are being eliminated, or they're going to still remain?
They still remain. It is literally just saying, it is acknowledging how the state looks at it, and the state
Yes.
runs this program. And instead of it being 3 CRAs, it is 1 CRA with 3 subcategories. There are no functional changes to the map.
So within the 3 subcategories, do any of the requirements change?
No.
Through the chair to the councilman, no.
Okay. So does this have any impact as to where we deposit our city funds?
Through the chair to the councilman, no. So the program will continue to function.
Let me hold it.
Yeah, because I need to understand
Gotcha.
this.
So CRA.
Right.
What you're thinking about, what I believe you're thinking about is our bank deposits.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely different.
Completely different.
Completely different.
Okay, I wanna understand.
Tax abate, yep, same words, but this
Because
is
that's
completely
obviously-
different. This is not, we're not talking about the depository.
Because that's obviously a big concern of Cleveland residents as it pertains to what we believe to be banks not complying with, especially redlining in the city of Cleveland.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to have the city of Cleveland is going to be defined as one Community Reinvestment Act. We'll have 3 subcategories. Within those 3 subcategories, the terms of the abatements do not change, correct?
Correct.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct.
Okay, so this just ties me in. Last week, the council president, Councilman Harrison, and myself were invited out to a ribbon cutting for a home on Muskoka Avenue by Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, which is part of their middle neighborhood program. That house was completely redone from basement to roof, including a new 2-car garage. When I asked, was this home going to get tax abatement, they told me no. And I asked them why. They said it's too cumbersome. It's too bureaucratic to go through the process. And I said, well, wait a minute. You want to talk about an incentive for someone to buy this home if they can get a 15-year tax abatement. They said it's just too cumbersome to go through the city's process. What's the issue?
Through the chair to the council person.
And you obviously know who Cleveland Neighborhood Progress is.
Yep, through the chair to the council person. So I know CNP, I'm familiar with that project. I'm trying to fund other projects on Muskoka, also being proposed by CNP. The issue is nothing really to do with this specific ordinance, but actually the original requirement that all residential improvements have to meet the Cleveland Green Building Standard. And so that building standard requires that projects either meet LEED Silver, Enterprise Green Communities 2020, or the National Green Building Standard, so one of 3 very well-known national standards. That, we find that most of the projects going through the tax abatement office are actually new construction, and the reason for that is that those green building standards and our old housing stock require oftentimes a gut rehab. So a house that's in decent condition would still need a gut rehab in order to meet that Cleveland Green Building Standard. I don't know this project.
This was a gut rehab.
Yeah. And I don't know the project off the top of my head, Councilman, and I have not talked to
But, you know, let
CMP
me just say
specifically.
this to you. And I'm going to try to be as diplomatic as I can here. And it's becoming more and more difficult. We want new housing. We want homes rehabbed. We want to forego demolition where we can and create homes that are rehab. And my observation in my 12 consecutive terms here is that we tore down a lot of homes that had good bones that could have been rehabbed. Now, this home, and I would defer to the council president and my chairman of the committee who was here. This was a complete gut job. This was a complete rehab. And, you know, I don't give a frick if it meets gold, silver, or gold, or platinum. It was completely rehab. And are we that stupid that we're not going to encourage renovations in our neighborhoods? And unless they meet certain standards or certain requirements, they can't qualify. This house is listed for $260,000 on a street where nothing is even close to that for sale price. Unless we provide incentives for people, there ain't nobody and their grandmother going to pay $260,000 for this house. Okay? So, I mean, if we have to amend or adapt that legislation that we presently have, then let's start thinking in common sense terms. And again, if my two honorable colleagues, Council President and Councilman Harrison, would have a difference of opinion, but they toured the same house that I did. And when I said, and they told me point blank, well, it's too cumbersome, it's too difficult for us to acquire tax abatement. Yet they're doing a house next door. They said they're going to have the same issue with that house as it pertains to tax abatement. Then we got to get with it. We got to get with it. And if a developer can't meet, what did you say, gold, silver?
LEED silver.
LEED silver. They got to meet at least LEED silver. That's what you're telling me.
So Councilman,
Is that wait a minute, is that a federal requirement?
Through the chair to the council person, no. It's not.
Okay, then what the frick are we doing
well,
here?
because this is the legislation that we spent a long time at this body legislating. And so what I would ask is that if that's a conversation in reopening
Right.
what tax abatement looks like programmatically, welcome to reopen that if our colleagues want to reopen that. What I will say is this is our attempt just for clarity and not to rehash what has already been decided. Now, I know that this administration is very interested, looking very closely at what a year of this might be. We've not one full year of this legislation yet. If we find that it's too cumbersome, then that may be all the more reason to open it up. What we're asking is if we can make this a little bit easier on the administrative side so that we can process. If the time comes where it is too hard for us to process and we need staff augmentation, that we
Yes.
have a little bit of dollars that we can put towards that. So
Okay.
this is for ease. And again, functionally not changing the program. That's a different conversation
Okay.
that we're not prepared to have here to relitigate that.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, I'm for making things as easy and as streamlined as possible because in 2025 in the city, it seems like we've become more bureaucratic than ever before to try to get stuff done. I have become so impatient in trying to get projects and initiatives done. I can't begin to tell you how impatient I've become. But I'm going to say that for the table. Council President was there. Councilman Hairston was there. They saw for themselves. And we just got to get with it. So I'm going to leave it at that. And so I'm here to be supportive in any which way I can. But, you know, Council President raised some very valid points here. We've got to make sure that we're not creating future stumbling blocks or hurdles that we have to get over should someone leave or someone not meet the designation as so required by whatever statutes. I want to be supportive, but doggone it, we got to get things done in this city. And we can't keep waiting and waiting and waiting. It takes too long to get stuff done here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, the easiest way is to give a designated authority to the leader of the department to assign quickly without having to come back to council. So if we're talking about efficiency in this program and naming somebody, if there's authority to name somebody right off the bat without having it go through a legislative process, that would be the efficiency that you might be looking for. Otherwise, happy to add another name,
I don't care if you name Joe Fabich. I want to just see get stuff done here, okay?
100%.
Thank you.
If I may.
Please.
Through the chair to the council person, I agree with you completely, Councilman. Part of the reason we're able to do 550 applications this year as opposed to 200 is because we looked at the process and we're moving things. I'm going to reach out probably as soon as I leave this room to CNP and figure out what the decision-making was, because if it was a gut rehab, it seems like it probably wouldn't have been too much, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay,
and find
good.
out.
Thank you.
And it may not be through the chair, and it may not be that they've done this process with our new staff and with our new improved process.
Thank you.
So that could also be, but happy to talk with our good partners at
Thank
CNP.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. I support this legislation. I think it makes sense. I don't ever want to, we hire smart people to manage tax payment. I don't ever want to manage it on the council side. So, Director, I agree. Like, this should have to come back for council authority. We've set the parameters, from a policy perspective. Let the good folks in your department, give them the authority, the tools, the resources they need to get it done. So let me just put that out there. I fully support this. And Chairman, I'll just quickly comment. I'm going to pick on myself here for a minute. Ward 3 has benefited tremendously through tax abatement, so should other wards. And the former council president used to always say, a person rehabbing a home in Cleveland is always more environmentally friendly than building an Avon, right? Sorry to pick on a specific suburb, suburb number Y, right? You have to build utilities way out there. You're increasing the vehicular or otherwise commute of a person. You're destroying wetlands. Like, it's always better to live within existing context from an environmental perspective. So I'm really curious, Mr. President, for us to take not today, not at this table today, but for us to look at, for rehab of houses in the city of Cleveland, I want to encourage as many times as we can to rehab houses, not tear them down. And if we can use our tax payment tools to further incent that, I think we should take a hard look at that. I'm just going to put that comment out there, Mr. Chairman. And Chair to Mr. Bango, who is doing a great job. I'm curious, there's been a spike in tax payment, obviously, because the grandfathered in. Are you noticing any other trends outside of the grandfather? Are we seeing a decline?
Through the chair to the council person, I don't think so. I think a lot of people that were planning projects for 2024, 2025 saw the opportunity to grandfather it, and we got 400 applications between, I think it was September of 2023 and December 31st of 2023. So tons and tons of applications. I think what we did is we saw like a bump and then a trough, and I think things are going to stabilize.
Okay.
We'll know better at the end of this year when we produce our annual data, but right now I'm feeling pretty confident that things are going to remain the same.
Thank you. And again, Chair, I support this legislation. I also support, and as you're very diligent, Mr. Chairman, through the chairman, Councilman Hairston, that we do have a conversation about specifically around rehab, and if there's anything that we can do to incent rehab and reduce barriers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Hairston, I know that it's been a while since you heard this in your committee, but did you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a very long time. And as Mr. Bangle said himself, I'm trying to listen closely and remember all of the things that we discussed from meeting with staff to committee. So please forgive me. Just quickly to echo Councilman Polenzek that all three of us were at the event and were made aware of the situation. And I thought to myself, and as I said to my colleagues, I said, well, we'll dig into it as soon as we can to figure out whether there needs to be some changes from the legislative end to better assist you all, to better assist the applicant, and particularly those who are doing rehab projects in the city. significant rehab projects as they did with the property on Muskoka. And, you know, we want to encourage many more of those type of projects across the city. As Councilman McCormick indicated, you know, rehabbing and taking properties that we already have on our streets is one of the best things that we can do for many of our neighborhoods. And so we'll dig into that to figure out what we need to do there. I know that the bureau chief is a part of the whole reorg. Only thing that I have questions or concerns about, and that I've spoken to council staff about, is the application fees. I know we discussed that early on about what those fees are, how much those fees will be, and who can raise or decrease those fees. Will it be yourself as the bureau chief, make that decision on your own about what the applications and the fees will be? And who can waive the fees, who can decrease the fees, and whether should that come back to this body for approval as we do other fees and assessments across the city, that we don't allow the department or the administration or board of control to on their own set the dollar amounts, but rather that is set by council and agreed on by council and then taken and implemented by the department and also board of control. And so to the chair, to Mr. Bango and the director, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, through the chair to the council person. So our recommendation via the suggestion and language is that the director of community development should be able to set those fees, but we still have to go through the board of control to make sure that they're not outlandish or inappropriate. And as I said earlier, it's not my intention to make recommendations of those fees to the director anytime soon. It's more about the ability to have them in place to make sure that my staff has the support that they need, given the amount of work that has changed from the old program to the new program that started in 2024. And at the end of the day, you know, Alyssa encourages this in me and my team, the director. But I'm like this myself. I worked at Metro West CDC and then Detroit Shoreway for a while. I'm all about units. How can we get housing done? My first interaction with the city of Cleveland, unfortunately, was I was trying to get subsidy to do 2 housing projects on West 47th Street, just outside of Thomas Jefferson. And the amount of time it took me just to get answers of how to move forward, both homes burned down, right? I'm disappointed when I hear about projects that choose not to go for tax abatement. But, you know, I spent a lot of time, I was on a call for a project a few weeks ago, and I sat there and talked through how they can use tax abatement to actually make their project more financially viable, and demonstrated to them mathematically that the costs that come with the program are still cheaper in the long run than not going with the program. So this is, again, more about having the ability to charge fees in the event that we think we need to, but you know, generally, I don't want to charge fees, and I'm especially going to prioritize fees on the projects that cause us the most work, multifamily, and not charging fees or having lesser fees to the projects that cause us the least amount of work, single family.
If I would add on, Mr. Chairman, it would be most efficient to do all of the functional changes in this one piece of legislation, and then work through Board of Control, which is the city's structure for setting fees. If that is not acceptable to this body, then I would ask that we wait until we want to, if we get to the point where we want to ask for fees, if we're going to have to come back anyways to set those fees, why don't we just wait and we'll amend it at that time? We still have research that we need to do, so we're actually not right now ready to ask for fees. We just want the ability to do so that if we get to the point where we need help, then we can do so right away.
Okay, thank you, Director. I appreciate that, and thank you, Mr. Bango. Mr. Chair, my thought would be is that that we, as a director, offered to wait to amend that section with the fees, only because we this is new. We're getting into this new structure. we already heard from one partner about their challenges and just don't want to create any more unnecessary hurdles or burdens on people, and especially if we're talking about more fees. And I hear you. You can tell us the fee could be $25 a day. We can look up and the fee can be $500, right? I mean, I'm interested to see what other cities charge for fees in these type of applications, or whether they even charge fees or what. I would like to, and again, this has been quite some time. I would like to maybe see what others are doing throughout the other municipalities in terms of fees and where they stand. So, Mr. Chair, it is your prerogative, whatever direction you like to go, but those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
So that would be the Second Amendment that you were looking at trying to do, that the councilman thinks that we should do more due diligence on?
To the chair, that would be an amendment to Section 4.
Section 4, where it says that shall be deposited into a fund to be approved by the Director of Finance at the end of that sentence, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So there are two other amendments that Mr. Bengal has proposed, and I believe a member of council would have to proffer those. Does anybody have a copy of those, or does the attorney have those? All right, so does anybody want to proffer the two amendments with the elimination of the fees section that Mr. Bengal has proffered?
I'm happy to, Chair.
Okay, Councilman McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for clarification, this would, with the exception of the amendment in Section 4, is that what we're talking about? Okay. Alrighty, Mr. Chairman, for ordinance number 719, 2024, I move to amend this ordinance in Section 5, replace division with bureau. And then in Section 7, Mr. Chairman, replace, quote, that property taxes have become delinquent with that property taxes have become certified delinquent.
Councilwoman Jasmine Santana has seconded. These two amendments have been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Just one last thing. The question about having multiple people, how would we do that, and how would we look at doing that? Because I truly believe that just as a backup, we should make sure that, in my opinion, I think Mr. Green offers a tremendous amount of experience. Is it possible that we could just make it that we have a backup person, and if that backup person works under you, then, I'm fine with that. But I just think, and I just want to be blunt and say this, I just think that nobody did anything wrong. I think that you're just realigning and trying to be more efficient. And I think, I don't want to see somebody just be shuffled around when they actually could bring value to strengthen and back up Mr. Bengal. So I just don't know how we can structure that, but I think that would be something that this body would have an appetite to see.
Through the chair, or to the chair, I have no objection to that. I'm happy to go back, reevaluate, spend some more time reading the code, and talk to the law department about it.
Okay, because when we come back to the table for Section 4 that Mr. Hairston is talking about, I would like to understand that operational as well, because not once through this process, through watching the old hearing or this hearing, that it was a performance issue. It's more about alignment. And if it's about alignment, we want to beef up the bench. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 719-2024 as amended stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mine is terrible too, so I'm good at it.
All right. Next up, Department of Finance. This is ordinance number 245-2025 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend Section 2 of ordinance number 75-2024 passed April 15, 2024, relating to professional services of providing emergency medical billing services coding, reimbursement, and compliance services. Director.
Through the chair to the committee, so this proposed amendment is to change the funding source for EMS billing services. So previously, this reported underneath of assessments and licenses. As council will recall, that moved over to risk management. This is simply to change the ordinance so that the funding source will move over to risk management as well from assessments and licenses.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Does the body have any questions? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 245-2025 stands approved. Next up, capital projects. The one we just passed, or the one we got now? I forget, man. I'm gone. Ordinance number 157-2025 by Councilmember Spencer, House Jones, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects and/or City Planning to enter into one or more contracts with Savona Studio LLC, Lauren HB, and Kistler Studio LLC for professional services designed for the design, production, and installation of 3 yet-to-be-designed public artwork installations at the renovated Clark Recreation Center, the renovated Sterling Recreation Center, and the new fire station number 26. Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. So this relates to 3 public art contracts, and as a reminder to council, back in 1976, there was an ordinance that was passed to require that a certain portion of the construction is set aside for public art. And it is, the way that it was phrased is to promote the welfare and prosperity of the community through the experience of art in public spaces. And so Law Department recently determined that each time we award that percent to the artist, we need to come through City Council with an ordinance. And so we're going to be coming to you for a series of ordinances. This one is 3 different artists for 3 different locations. Savona Studio LLC for the Clark Recreation Center at $80,000. Lauren HB Studio for the Sterling Recreation Center at $87,813. And Kistler Studio LLC for the new fire station number 26 in the amount of $148,000. We had a question at the previous committee about how these amounts were determined, and it's determined based upon the construction portion of the budget for those projects. And to my right, I have Jay Raschenbach from MOCAP, who chairs the Public Art Committee, and to his right is Tara Petras from City Planning, who manages public art for the city in city planning. And so we can talk about the process and procedure as needed, or answer any other questions that council may have about these artist contracts.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that there was a public art group that was available for each one, right? Each one of these?
Yep.
I do know that I had the capable example of Miss Petras that actually basically, I told her I trust her judgment. So she really kind of handled that for us. That's for the fire station, number 26. Did the committee come up with a design, or did they select the artists, or how were those artists selected?
Go ahead, Jay, or Tara.
So, Mr. Chairman, we selected 3 artists through, we reviewed RFPs as a group, then we selected 3 artists for interviews. Then based on those interviews, we selected artists for the actual, they all got us scored. We based the scoring off of their qualifications, a conceptual design they brought to the table, a budget, community engagement, and also a maintenance plan. So those are the 5 big criteria we use as our criteria to select the artists.
Great.
And so, Mr. Chairman, these, the specific work of art is not yet designed. We have a concept based upon, what they presented to us, but we don't have art to share with City Council today or with the council person until we go through this contracting process.
And I know that different communities have different processes, but at some point in time, if Ms. Petras would love to come to the Ward 6 meeting and talk with the Ward 6 community and engage. I would love to have that happen.
Through the chair, yes, that's part of the process. Once the artist is under contract, I connect the artist with the council person as well as the CDC to start the community engagement process
Got it.
beyond the ad hocs that are appointed to the committee.
Looking forward. That was the process that I want to make sure that we pick up, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Municipal Services and Properties.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard this in MSP committee, and we fully support this passage.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions regarding? Councilwoman Jasmine Santana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. To the chair, the director, what's the difference between a fire station and a police station in terms of putting up murals?
Through the chairman and the councilwoman, so the process is the same for a police versus a fire station, but what's important here is that this is a brand-new fire station that was being built. So there's a large amount of budget that's being put into the construction project versus if we just fix the HVAC at a police station or if we fix a roof, then oftentimes it doesn't exceed the threshold when the public art component kicks in, which is, what is the amount of money? If you remind me?
300,000. 300,000.
300. So
The reason-
300,000 or more, then we calculate how much of that is 300 for construction, then it would kick in.
Got it. The reason I asked is because, we received those TAF dollars in the Stockyard Clark Fulton neighborhood, and the residents asked for a mural on Second District, and we were told that we're not allowed to put any murals on public buildings, which Second District is. So I'm just, I'm a little
I don't know that
confused
that's-
about that.
We'll have to have a offline conversation about that because I don't know that that statement in and of itself is true, but it may be some distinguishing factors that figure
Got it.
in
Okay, we could talk
possibly.
offline. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 157-2025? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 157-2025 stands approved. Next up is ordinance number 178-2025 as amended by council members McCormick, Bishop, and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to employ one or more professional consultants for the preliminary design, the final design, and construction services relating to rehabilitation of the Carter Road Lift Bridge, to apply for and accept any gifts, grants, or loans from the appropriate State of Ohio department or other public or private entity or agency for the rehabilitation of the Carter Road Lift Bridge. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this is one of the lift bridges that we need to rehab. And we have a portion of the funding set aside through a grant from the state of Ohio through the Local Major Bridge Project Fund, and that was a $20 million grant that we received last year. In addition to it, last bonding cycle, we went through City Council and we had $1.5 million of local bonds approved as a match to that grant. But this, the $20 million grant is not going to get us all the way through rehabbing this bridge. We're going to have to split it into phases. And to start this work, this ordinance would allow us to enter into preliminary engineering contracts with the design team. And what they're going to do is basically split their work into three parts. One is they're going to identify how to move forward with a first phase of the project based upon the funding that we have. They're going to then prepare design documents based upon that phase one, and they're also going to assist us in applying for grants for a phase two of the project. And so we are seeking authorization to move forward with that first design contract, and then we'll be working to obtain additional funds to finish phase two of the rehab.
Thank you. All right, and I guess I shouldn't read the amendment. The amendment says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in Section 3, Line 3, after ordinance, and strike from any and all funds approved by the Director of Finance, including, that's it, and then it's dated 3/18/2025 by Vishnu Gaglani, Assistant Director of Law. All right, are there any other questions regarding 178-2025 as amended? Seeing no other questions, 178-2025 as amended stands approved.
Thank you.
Public Works. First ordinance is ordinance number 176-2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into an amendment to contract MA 1505-RC 2022-32 with Lorraine County Landfill LLC to add additional services for the handling and disposal of solid waste loads. Director.
Thank you, Chair. This passage of this legislation is necessary so we can pay for the handling and disposal of municipal solid waste that has a radioactive signature. It is not uncommon for traces of radioactive material to be found in household trash. In order for material to be disposed of in a licensed landfill, it has to be handled in a specific way. The process for handling such material has an additional cost that was not included in our initial contract. So right now we have a contract to pick up waste, but we do not have a line for the contractor to be able to handle radioactive waste. It is not radioactive waste that's harmful, but it is enough to trigger the machinery with the contractor. What we're asking for is our current contract to be able to add a line for them to be able to handle this material. They've been doing it up to a point, but now it's become a lot more than what they can handle, and we're just asking to be able to add that line into the contract. I have the commissioner here to be able to answer any questions specifically about the radioactive material.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How do you identify radioactive material in rubbish? And give us an example of what radioactive material looks like.
Good afternoon. What happens is when we transfer material from the Ridge Road Transfer Station to Lorraine County Landfill, it goes through a sensor, and it would trigger the sensor identifying that there's some sort of radioactive material. Whenever that sensor goes off, that material cannot be landfilled. So what it does has to be handled a second time. And what they do is they take it to another part of the landfill. They offload the load and give it a period of time, maybe about 24 hours to 48 hours, for the half-life of that material to dissipate. Then reload it and run it back through the machine, the machinery again, and then that's when it's able to be landfilled.
Right. Give us an example of what radioactive material is. It like bleach, or is it other kind of things, or what?
As the increase of individuals who are receiving home health care, so you have a lot of folks who are receiving different type of medical treatments, and actually as the accumulation of all that stuff in the load, sometimes it triggers a landfill. A lot of times it's just folks who are receiving chemotherapy and things of that nature, and they have other home health aid stuff they dispose of that gets to a point where it starts sending off a signature.
That's interesting. I wonder if there has been any analysis done of if that has increased in recent years because of the spike in home health care and home, aids, which might mean why your costs have gone up?
Well, yes. So it has gone up. So it's not uncommon to have that occur. Generally, it would happen 3-4 times a year. It was no big deal for the landfill. But last year we had 18 loads that triggered. So that's when they say, listen, we can no longer eat the cost, and they want to be able to charge us another $1,300 to be able to service that load.
Interesting. All right. Thank you, Councilman Kevin Bishop. This was heard in Municipal Services and Properties.
Yes, Mr. President, we heard this in Municipal Services and Properties, and we fully supported the passage.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 176-2025 stands approved. I have to step out for 1 second. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Okay. Well, I got
Thank you.
pieces. I'll be back.
Please sign this.
Yeah. Can we?
Alrighty. Assistant Director, ordinance number 232, 2025, by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into one or more agreements with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation to provide services necessary for general, routine maintenance and repair of a portion of State Route 176 for a period or periods not to exceed a total of 2 years. Assistant Director.
Thank you, Chair. Passage of this legislation is necessary for the care and supervision of the Public Highways 176. This contract will allow us to do not only snow and ice control, but it will also allow us to do things like landscaping on this. We need this type of contract because for two things, we do not currently have the capacity to be able to do this in our other work. But at the same time, if we were to try to do this, the cost for us to be able to do this is a lot more than what we could bear. I have with me the Commissioner to be able to explain more about this contract.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So the total of the contract is just over $204,000. Is there also efficiencies here, Commissioner, given that ODOT is already servicing the freeways around it? I mean, does that bring a level of efficiency here, Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, that's absolutely correct. They're better equipped to handle this style of roadway than we are.
Absolutely. Okay. Councilman Plensick.
I have a general question when you're through with this.
Got it. Any additional questions on 232? Hearing none, 232, 2025 stands approved. Please sign.
Thank you.
Councilman, you want miscellaneous?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ordinance number 233, 2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement for the grinding of pavement for the local resurfacing of city streets and authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into one or more public improvement requirement contracts for the making of the improvement for a period of up to 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director. 233, sir.
Thank you, Chair. This piece is another one of our regular pieces for street resurfacing.
Yep.
This is one of 3 things that we need, one of this being the grinding. So I have here Commissioner Scott to be able to answer any questions you may have about the specific contract.
Got to grind the road before you repave it.
Absolutely.
What questions do we have on 233? Hearing none, 233, 2025 stands approved. Please sign. Ordinance 235, 2025. By council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of rock salt for the Division of Streets, Department of Public Works for a period of 1 year.
Thank you,
Director.
Chair. Again, another one of our regular pieces. This is for us to be able to purchase rock salt through the state term contract. I have the Commissioner with me here to answer any questions about that.
I do have
Director, how are we doing on our stockpile right now? What does it look like? How did this past winter impact what we've got going on right now?
Mr. Chairman, to the council, we currently have 10,000 tons in our inventory yet remaining, and we have the ability to purchase more if needed, but I think we're out of the woods on that. So the 10,000 will get us through this season, and this contract then will replenish and restock once this bid comes in from ODOT.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Bishop, this went through Municipal Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard this in MSP committee, and we fully support it for passage.
Thank you, Councilman Plensick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You asked a question about our inventory. With regard to the salt domes, have they all been repaired now, the salt domes?
Mr. Chairman and the councilman, no, they have not, but we are in the process of having 2 more domes being strongly considered to be done soon. The one new dome was rebuilt from the ground up at the Glenville yard.
Right, I
You've probably
saw that.
seen that from the freeway.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that project. That looks good.
So what other 2, Mr. Chairman, to the commission?
We have enough funding available this year through architecture MOCAP. We're looking at doing the one at Stamps, and we're looking to do the one at East 65th Station.
Okay. Those are, they have to be totally rebuilt, or can they be repaired?
These are going to not be totally rebuilt. These are going to be repaired, virtually stripped down and rebuilt on the same frame, same platform.
Okay. Because, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, I think it's very important. I remember when we didn't have salt domes.
Right.
And what happened. So they have the salt domes are very important and very critical. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just real quick, do you just top off the domes with salt, or do you have to buy the same amount of tonnage every year? Because we've had a light winter. And do we save money, or because we have a requirements contract that we have to buy the same amount? And how does that work if we only use a fraction of what we buy?
Each and every year, to the chairman, each and every year, we are required by ODOT to specify or estimate how much salt we think we want to purchase in a season. And then we can purchase either 10% less or 10% more based on the severity of the winter.
So, do we have, like, don't we have a lot of salt left over?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, in certain years we do. Like last year, we had a lot of salt left over. That's why you saw stockpiles outside. But this year, with all of the ice events that we've had this year, we used most of all that we had stored outside and all but 10,000 that we have inside. So it's time to refill under this contract. We will be refilling, and we intend to purchase somewhere around 50,000 tons.
Okay. And I know that in past years, we had conversations about making sure that we had diversity and inclusion on your truckers. And I know that because we were using a state contract, the state doesn't have the same details as the city. I do know that I think you guys facilitated, or the past administration facilitated a meeting with the state to talk about this. But do we know if anything has ever moved in that direction to make sure that we have some of the local firms that are able to truck the salt that operate here in the city, any minority or MBE or FBE firms?
Mr. Chairman, with council's involvement in that process, yes, the state of Ohio did meet with some of the local vendors, and they have engaged and employed some of the local vendors. I'm happy to say that.
That's great. I remember we were trying to work on that, me and Councilman Hairston, so I'm glad that that finally came to fruition. All right, seeing no other questions, Councilman Bishop, I think we already checked in with you. Ordinance number 235-2025 stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up is ordinance number 305-2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 551.112 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 2393-02 passed February 2, 2003, relating to fees for dumpster and compactor rentals, and to amend section 551.301 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 678-A-82, passed June 21, 1982, relating to services for tire shredding. Director.
Thank you, Chair. Passage of this legislation is necessary to increase commercial dumpster and compactor fees, establish a rate for leasing a second waste collection cart for households paying the standard waste collection fee, and to develop rates for commercial dumpster services of recyclable materials to be made available to residential dwellings with 4 more units or more. This legislation will allow us to assess and collect a charge of $5 per tire for shredding services. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Pruitt to be able to answer your questions for this.
Thank you. Commissioner, any comments?
Yes, basically, this piece of legislation updates some of the ordinances that we had in place, one going back as far as 1982. The other ones are 20 years old, and it allows us to come in line with the proper fees that will cover our costs for some of the services that we're able to provide to the private sector.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Councilman Michael Polensek.
So, Mr. Chairman, to my honorable colleagues and to the director and to the commissioner, as it pertains to the dumpsters, how does that, because I don't see the fees in here that I'm on my copy.
Through the chair, to the councilman, the fees are actually included in the ordinance.
Legislation.
In the legislation, hold on,
Yeah.
let me take a look at that.
It's on the first page of the
Yeah,
legislation.
let me look at that, wait a minute, okay. I was looking at the summary.
Summary, yeah.
Okay, hold on. So while I'm looking for that, how do we stack up against private companies?
Through the chair, we're well below the market value. These fees that were in place, they were passed initially in 2003. They don't cover the cost of our current operation. They'll cover the cost for the disposal of material that's inside the dumpster, let alone the cost for the personnel and the the personnel and also also the depreciation of the vehicles. This is just a calculation that takes us CPI, bring us well below market value, but it still allows us to cover some of our costs, so that way we at least break even instead of running at a deficit.
Okay. So when I look at what I call the big dumpster, is that a 40-yarder?
Yes.
Okay. So then the 64-gallon cart and the 96-gallon cart, what would that be for?
Currently, through the chair, we're not allowed to, many residents will ask, can they have an additional cart for their household?
Yes.
There's no fee associated to that, so we don't pass out additional carts. So now this legislation will allow us to be able to charge a resident if they want a second car for recycling or a second car for trash. We can assess them a fee, and then that way we can go ahead and issue them a cart.
And that would be a one-time fee?
Yes, sir.
So the carts, the black carts that we have now, like I have one of the original, one of the black ones, which I'm surprised has lasted this long, but I was looking at it this morning. It's got its issues. What size cart is that?
A 96-gallon black.
Those are the large ones.
Yes.
So those of us that have, we're not going to get charged.
Through the chair, no. So if you receive your initial fielding of carts, we replace those with no charge.
Okay.
If a resident would like a second cart, they can now pay for that second cart, and we'll give them a second cart after they pay.
Okay. So I didn't know that. So for the viewing public, they can contact the Department of Waste Collection and get another cart if they'd like.
Through the chair, if this is passed, this will allow us to do that.
Okay. Then so I'm just trying to get this clear, because like for the 40-yard, that has gone up substantially. Well, all of them, 36-yard, 40, they've gone up substantially in charge, and you're still telling us that we're going to be competitive.
We're through the chair, we'll be well below the market. So this is just covers our cost, right? So the market. This is how much it costs for a 7-day rental. So this 7-day rental just covers our costs for leasing that.
So has requests for carts gone for compactor for has it gone up or down?
Through the chair, the request for carts have gone up. Most people want replacement carts because the initial fielding of the waste collection carts are about 15 years old. So we'll replace those on a regular basis. That's a separate program. That doesn't have anything to do with this piece of legislation.
Yeah.
But dumpsters, so I believe, Mr. Chair, through the chair, you're asking about the dumpsters. Yes. We do get an increase in the summertime.
Yes.
We stray away because it's not our primary focus. It's a second or third focus that we have.
Yes.
But now, we primarily reserve those dumpsters for councilmatic and public events.
Yes.
And then on the weekends the weeks that we don't have that high of demand, we will lease them to residents. And this legislation will allow us to at least recover our costs.
So, Edgy, just briefly, what's the difference from a 40-yard compactor and a 40-yard dumpster?
Through the chair, so compactors we don't lease. So we have compactors that the city of Cleveland owns throughout that service primary public buildings. We have them at the West Side Market.
Yes.
We have them at the airport. We're going to install one actually here at City Hall, as well as one for utilities. Is this just established the rates that we will charge internally for those services?
So you're talking about interdepartmental charges?
Through the chair, yes.
So you don't provide those to the general public or commercial businesses?
Through the chair, no.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get this clarified. Okay, so for our neighborhood cleanups and stuff like that, we use the 40-yarders, correct?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. Let me see if I have any other questions here. I think that's the blue carts are 2-yard dumpster recycling, and that's what those are?
Through the chair, this is something new. So we
What is that?
have a lot of businesses who want to recycle.
Yes.
And they're private sector businesses, and so what we want to offer is a dumpster service and a rate for the recycled materials. Before we didn't have that in place.
Okay.
So this allows us to go ahead, if they say a business wants to do recycling, we can go ahead and lease them a dumpster, a front load dumpster, and we can pick up the recycling for them.
And we'll pick that up weekly, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner?
Yes, all depends on the terms of the service.
Okay.
So it's set up by how many times we tip. So therefore, if they want bi-weekly service, monthly service, or whatever is necessary for their facility, that's what we'll charge them.
Okay, because we all know there are certain establishments, restaurants, bars that generate a lot of bottles, and I often wondered, and again, so I applaud you guys for coming up with something, because a lot of that stuff just went into the garbage, and a lot of that stuff can be recycled. And as you know, I'm a firm believer in recycling. I've been doing it since I was a Cub Scout. And I believe in it. And so I'm glad we're moving in that direction. And I'm going to leave it at this point. What's the percentage of people recycling in the city?
About 78, through the chair, we have 78,000 members recycling out of 155,000 households.
So about half?
Well, about 55%.
Are actually recycling?
Yes. And I'd also like to say that we are at a 14% contamination rate, the lowest in the county, which is amazing.
Yeah. I'm still surprised on my own street, which is all homeowners except for one house, the number of people who don't recycle. I just don't get it.
So through the chair, if you would, this is something that we're trying to reset in 2025.
Yeah.
Get us in front of as many households or community groups as you can. We want to really push the value of recycling, invite people in. So if you know individuals, it can be an individual or a whole group.
Yeah.
If you got folks that you want to talk to, call us out. We'll be there.
Okay, because between recycling and composting, because I have 2 compost bins, I virtually have no garbage.
Yeah.
I could, you could pick me up once every 3 weeks, I'd be fine, because I recycle, man. And I just can't understand why more and more people don't get that in the city of Cleveland. But we got to educate them. But I appreciate this information. I appreciate always your help, Commissioner. And that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, how many households do you think ask for a second cart?
Through the chair, usually we get, on average, maybe 2 or 3 a month.
So if it's only 2 or 3 a month, is it worth actually charging the $75 for an additional garbage can? It's not like we're handing them out, hundreds at a time, especially when the current cans, which are the original ones, are starting to get beat up and all that other stuff. Is this a little excessive? And I think the city could afford 25 carts a year if only that many are asking throughout the city.
So through the chair to the councilman, and I do understand. The thing is, if asking for the second cart, we will always replace that first one. So if it gets beat up and you need a new one, we'll replace that. But to have 2, right? That's the issue where it is a substantial cost to get these carts, as you know. Each year we have to do somewhere in the millions of dollars to just replace carts. To be able to just at least help us with that, we think that it's a reasonable ask.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, the assistant director, and the commissioner, I understand that, but if people are asking for an additional cart and they're recycling, it's not. I'm sure somebody like Councilman Polensek, there's a difference between Councilman Polensek's household and Councilman Casey's household, right? Where you've got a low number of individuals living in one household, but you may have a larger number of individuals living in another household, right? So even with the recycling, the 96 holds 3 bags of garbage, maybe 4, right, tops. And I'm just thinking that if they're asking for an additional cart, they're not asking for it out of, convenience. They actually need it. So
through the chair to the councilman, I would say when you get 3 or 4 requests, that's 3 or 4 requests that come to me. Everyone knows, especially if they call 311, that they're not allowed to get a second cart. So there may be more that was even denied before we even get to my desk. So what it does, this puts a meter on it. Like it puts it like kind of, if you really do need this additional service, we have no issue providing that service, but there is a cost because there's additional cost to us as well.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the commissioner, the assistant director, it's $875 a month now for trash pickup. You're not looking to increase that if you have a second cart, are you?
Through the chair, no. This is just a one-time fee for the charge of the cart.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 305-2025 stands approved. Thank you so much. Please sign on. I do have to make one quick revisit. I was informed by law that ordinance, just not you guys. This is real quick with council. Ordinance number 719, that I need someone to make an amendment that says remove the director of the Department of Community Development is authorized to set and collect application fees. So if someone could do that, we just a quickly minor adjustment if we could. Someone proper.
So I'll offer that amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second, Chair.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. We can just give that back to Mr. Hairston and Law. All right, next is ordinance number 306-2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts for the transfer and disposal of tires for the Division of Waste Collection and Disposal, Department of Public Works, for a term of 2 years. Director.
Thank you, Chair. This piece of legislation will allow us to go out for bid for another contract for tire disposal throughout the city. The last contract that we had will be expiring soon, so we want to be able to get in front of that. That's this legislation is just a request for us to be able to go out for bid for that, and I have Commissioner Pruitt here to answer any questions about this contract.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard this in MSP committee and fully recommend it for passage.
Thank you. Councilman Pruitt, did you have any comments to add, or are you good?
One comment. This is something we need annually. It's important for us to be able to dispose of our tires.
Got it. All right, any questions regarding ordinance number 306-2025? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 306-2025 stands approved. Please sign on.
Chair.
Thank you. Sign.
Asked for miscellaneous.
Councilman Polensek would like a miscellaneous.
Before the assistant director leaves.
Oh, before the assistant director.
Yeah,
Commissioner,
I didn't have
think
one for
you're
the
good.
commissioner. I didn't.
Okay.
Do you want to wait till I get through this next two? Or you want to go ahead and
I'll wait, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Next one is ordinance number 304-2025 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 551.111 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 974-13, passed December 1, 2014, relating to setting out an excessively large quantity of waste for collection, prohibited, applicable penalty. Director?
Thank you, Chair. This passage for this legislation is necessary to prohibit and penalize excessively large items not properly covered that are set out for waste. So what we're trying to get at with this piece of legislation is to be able to allow us to require folks to wrap things like mattresses or large items that are cloth items that are being put out. We want to do this for the safety of our folks, and we have things like bed bugs, and you have different types of who knows what kind of viruses are out there that are being transmitted through the cloth. So we're just asking for the ability to be able to have that in the list. It's not there right now. We just want to have that. But I have the commissioner here to be able to talk more about that.
Commissioner?
Thank you. Yeah, this is specifically for, we wrote this with the employees in mind first. When this ordinance originally passed about 11 years ago, bed bugs wasn't considered. Now, often when we see materials outside that's not wrapped to have cloth, the consideration is that generally putting out because there's some sort of infection on there. We want to protect our employees so they don't take that kind of stuff home.
Great. I'm surprised that we haven't had that in place already. That's good. This is a great piece of legislation. Just out of curiosity, how do you police that? I just recently had a elderly resident that passed away. The neighbor is on his street. went and set everything out over on Townsend Avenue. And, you know, they couldn't afford a dumpster because he passed away. How do you police it when you got those kind of situations that is somebody who basically is a senior that just passes away and have to set all that stuff out on the curb?
Mr. Chair, we write the ticket. Often, if it's anything that's outside of the 2 carts, it's subject to a citation. It's just like speeding, going down Kinsman. We don't catch everybody. But on occasion, we do catch individuals that if they have anything that's not on bulk week, that is not the 2 carts, then they're subject to a citation.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. We got a big city, and some of these houses are abandoned. Somebody just decides to load up somebody's curb. You give a ticket. How is that homeowner responsible?
Mr. Chair, it's their property.
So they even if it's they pass away and they're in probate or anything else like that?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Councilman Bishop.
Yes, Mr. President, we heard it's an MSP committee, and we fully recommend it for passage.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a specific procedural question on this. I understand how you wrap a mattress in plastic. How do you wrap a couch in plastic?
Through the chair to the councilman, we had a similar issue at our house. What we did is we just took 2 large garbage bags and cut them open, split them down the side, and just duct taped them around the exposed material.
Okay.
So it's not necessary, through the chair, it's not necessary that you wrap the entire piece of furniture, just the exposed material so that we can grab it.
Okay. So I would just ask, Mr. Chairman, that we think about education on this piece, because I've communicated to my residents that they said, do I have to wrap my entire couch in plastic? And I've told them no. So if we are changing that, I could see us running into issues with bulk week on folks putting a couch out and not knowing that this has changed.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, that's correct. Education is something that we like to do all the time, but it's key. It's just it's not as it's not designed. This piece is not designed to be cumbersome. It's more just make sure that if you have anything exposed, wrap it as best as you can, so that way we at least get a handle on
Okay.
it.
So will we include these changes in our educational materials and all that?
Through
the chair,
through the
yes.
chair, yes.
Okay.
We will, and we will work to actually try to get information to this committee.
Yeah.
To be able to get to your residents so they know exactly.
This is very much change
Yeah.
that I'd like to put in my newsletter
Yeah.
so my residents can
We'll get
see
something
it
to
and
you.
so something, a simple graphic that says, hey, change in bulk put out, you gotta now, the exposed, and I mean, I know it might sound so, but even like maybe a little graph of what it means
Sure.
to do this. And because I know I do get this question
Sure.
about
Absolutely.
how to properly wrap, and I support it, to protect our employees, but I just want to make sure that we're communicating it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I would like to
Chairman,
also
I have a
say to the last question, as far as when we get those types of tickets, we do take them on case-by-case basis. There are some, if we're able to get in front of it before a ticket is actually done, we try to work those out. But for the most part, so we can try to make sure that behavior, we have to have something in place. But again, I don't want to think as if we're draconian. We do have a heart.
All right. Thank you. Councilman Michael Pelesi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director and to the Commissioner. On the, as it pertains to your bulk pickup days, do you have any idea what percentage of the public are complying with that?
It varies. Through the
Okay.
chair, it varies. You do have a significant amount of residents who want to, or conscientious who want to follow set out guidelines.
Right.
But you have a lot of rogue individuals as well. We do have a issue throughout the city of Cleveland. It's not one particular side of town
Right.
or one particular neighborhood. Folks don't seem to. They want to be able to put out what they want to put out, and they're not really too concerned about the impact it has on the employees.
Okay. And so it goes back, based on questions of the council president. Sometimes we got elderly folks, they get furniture delivered. They have nobody else in their household to put it out. So there it goes out on the tree lawn because they have nobody there to haul it into the backyard and then place it out. So I find that's a reoccurring problem. So again, it's one of education and maybe even notifying the companies that do deliveries in the city of Cleveland, because I'm told that most of your furniture warehouses or your furniture stores now and your appliance companies, they contract with people to do their deliveries. So maybe we do maybe a staffer assigned where we can notify them that if you're delivering, you got to take into consideration where you're putting it. Maybe you should take it with you, okay, when you leave. The other thing is about the wrapping. Besides wrapping, is there anything that a citizen could spray rather than having wrap? Because again, we're dealing with folks that don't have the physical ability to get out there and wrap this stuff up. But if there's something they could spray on there, is there anything they can buy?
Through the chair, nothing I'm aware of. We have to research something like that. But often, there's, like you said, through the chairs, garbage bags work well.
Okay.
I remember a lot of folks put a plastic in the wintertime on their windows. The plastic they put up on the windows works
Okay.
well.
But we're still using the claw to pick the stuff up, correct?
Through the chair, that's on certain occasions. Oftentimes, on bulk week, we have employees who pick this stuff up by hand.
Okay, I
Majority.
thought we were using the claw collectively across the city.
We do have bulk. We do have grapple trucks, but for the amount of bulk items that we have, most of our employees they pick it up by hand.
Oh, okay. I mean, Mr. Chairman, to the administrator, maybe this is something we need to look at. Because one of the reasons, and this would outdate everybody at this table, one of the reasons why we went with the containers years ago, which council is the one who advocated that, was because the number of garbage collectors, refuse collectors that were being hurt. When being punctured by things coming out of bags or trying to load a can and a raggedy can breaks open. So we went this way because we had a high percentage of folks in waste collection with workman comp claims. So we got away from that. We've made tremendous improvements and tremendous strides, and maybe this is just a part of the evolution that we need to look at getting the more and more trucks with the grappling hook or whatever you call it, or claw. So we don't have to have people lifting or physically doing this with the fear of bed bugs or else getting hurt. I'm one of these that feel very strongly about protecting our employees. And I want to make sure, but I also want to provide a service to our citizens. So again, I would say to the administration, maybe you should tell us when we talk about the capital and talk about restricted income tax, how many more trucks could you possibly need or use for this capacity? And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Councilman Anthony Hairston?
Yep, just one quick question, Mr. Chair, through the chair to the team here. I know previously you talked about the roundup of like just random carts that are just all over the city. I can't tell you how many vacant homes that I pass and there are carts. I turn a lot of them in when I send the complaints in as well. And also court community service, if they are dispatched to the neighborhood and I see them and I see they're working on the vacant house, I let them know and they will take them and take them over to your Ridge Road. Because most of them be full, right? And it's behind a vacant house. Is there a plan of action through the chair to the team here to go around to these abandoned homes and pick up these black and blue carts? A lot of them are still in great condition that are just in the driveways, kicked to the side in vacant lots behind houses. You know, that will save us a lot of money. We can get those carts, man, and clean them out and maybe dispatch those at an even discounted rate to residents who want a second cart because they're used, but they're in still good condition. The wheels are still excellent. The tops are on them. They're not cracked. Have we thought about that through the chair?
Through the chair, yes, we do. Oftentimes, so what triggers us to go look for a carts at vacant properties is when we get notification of a house need to be boarded up, or if the house is scheduled to be demolished, then we'll get that list from building and housing. If a house is still paying the waste collection fee, even though it may be vacant, it still may be paying a water bill. And then when in those cases, we leave those carts there. On occasion, when we do have a break in a lull in service, we're able to go out and start flooding in particular neighborhoods, especially when we know we get a number of complaints about, there's a number of vacant carts in a particular area. We'll just service the whole community to try to get as many vacant carts out. But yes, when we do get those carts that are still in good condition, we do reuse them. Often, some residents don't mind having a used cart.
It's garbage. It's all.
But Councilman, you got different variation. Some people don't mind used carts, some people do, but we do keep those carts to be for reuse.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And lastly, you know, absolutely understand the house is just vacant and maybe just somebody's not occupied at the moment because it's maybe a rental property or something. But there's many abandoned homes, and not vacant, but abandoned homes that are boarded up, there's windows busted out, grass overgrown that I've come across that has these trash cans just there, right? You know, a lot of times we'll try to, in our neighborhood cleanups, we'll pick them up, try to sit them on the curb with hope that the city will go ahead and empty them and take them, you know, and do something with them. But I think that the department should really look at a more like a vacant property cart roundup or something, like they do the tire roundup.
Sure.
You know, they go around and look for these tires to try to access a lot of these carts and put them back to use. Matter of fact, I had a resident who called me, and I think I sent that in previously. There's a street in East Cleveland. They got a whole line of our black and blue carts, right? They're using them everywhere because they go in, they see them out on the streets, they pick them up, throw them back in the pickup, and they got a cart, right? That we need to go over, cross the border, and take our cars back, right? You know, so I think, Mr. Chair, as we move along, just maybe get that to some consideration. I know you got 51 million things on your plate already, but add that to make it 51 million plus two, and you know, maybe we can get there at some point. Thank you.
Through the chair to the council,
Yes.
Councilman, we will definitely find ways that we can try to work, even with our vacant properties group, to be able to coordinate that better.
All right, thank you.
Especially with our seasonal crews through the chair coming on next month. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I will tell you that you learned a lot about city operations. This is some good stuff, and appreciate Commissioner for doing a good job. This is ordinance number 304-2025. It stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is ordinance number 239-2025, as amended by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into one or more contracts with Faster Asset Solutions for the acquisitor of a database management system, including software licenses, system support, annual maintenance, and the services necessary to migrate to a web-based system for the Division of Motor Vehicle Maintenance, Department of Public Works, for a period of 2 years. Director.
Thank you, Chair. This piece is.
I'm sorry, let me read the amendment. The amendment states, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in Section 3, Line 1, after shall, insert not exceed 300,000 and shall. This was dated 3/8/25 by Vishnu Gaglani. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Passage of this legislation will allow us for the necessary upgrade to our current vehicle maintenance system, Faster. We're actually asking for a direct award. The current system that we've been using is not a web-based system. It's a client-based system. We want to now be able to upgrade this system to web-based, but to be able to do that, the cost is going to be no more than $300,000. We're asking for a direct award because we want to stay with our current vendor. Current vendor has been, we have a great relationship with this vendor. We also, the software it works very well for our needs. So I have the commissioner here to be able to talk to any questions or speak to any questions that you may have about this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Just that this is our fleet data management system. All the vehicles, all the equipment in the city is housed in this database. And it's just the original system is going to sunset, and we're going to migrate into we want to migrate into the web-based system.
Okay. Councilman Bishop?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we fully support this piece of legislation.
Thank you. Councilman
Chair.
Conwell?
With this new software, you upgrading it, will it save us money in the long run through the chair? And what about the efficiency of it?
Through the chair to the councilman, the efficiency is much better because it opens us up to being able to do more things. With a web-based system, we'll be able to write and run a multiple types of reports as far as tracking efficiencies, PMI reports that we can't or are very cumbersome to do now.
So what is PMI?
Preventive maintenance inspection.
Oh, yeah. And that should save us money, you think, with preventive maintenance?
Through the chair to the councilman, the cost savings will be in the additional efficiencies that it brings to us.
So in the fleet, who are you training, the regular workers to do it? Are your supervisors that doing preventive maintenance or what on the vehicles?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have a fleet data manager that would manage the system, but every technician, every person in my shop touches this system. All of our records are all electronically, we don't use any paper. So all of our records are electronically driven. So every technician enters their information into this system. Every supervisor reviews and runs reports. So it's truly is a electronic digital system.
And it will save us on the cars. You think that the vehicles will last longer with this system? We're able to monitor, you think, perhaps? Looking at the efficiency through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, the alternative, if we were not to do the upgrade, we'd have to go to a completely new system. So it's if we don't do this, we'd have to go out for bid, get a brand new system. They'd have to change our data, translate our data, move our data. That would be a really large cost for us. In our mind, we do need a system, so we can't get away from not having one. This is the most efficient route to get to that, to have a web-based system that will allow us to we can actually add new partners. One of the things that I talked about with the commissioner is that the ability for other divisions to be able to have better access to their vehicle information, which you can't do in the current client setup. But when you go web-based, you can have better, more accurate information. So there will be huge efficiencies, and I believe this will be the cheapest route for us to be able to upgrade, get a state-of-the-art system without having to go through all the changes that go through a new system implementation that may or may not work. We know that this system works. We've been using it for a long time, and we're pretty satisfied with it.
So other cities use it. You looked at what they're doing. I'm just being nosy with it because I look at that kind of stuff. Preventive maintenance and fleet management. Fleet management is very, very important.
Absolutely.
So I see it. I see the system. I understand it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 239-2025 as amended stands approved.
Thank you.
Please sign it on. I'll go to public health.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Oh, Mr. Laird, come on up, Director.
That's all right.
You can come on, have a seat where Mr. Laird answers this question. Mr. Legas.
I just had a question for the Assistant Director. If he could tell us when he expects full-time street sweeping to begin.
Through the chair to the councilman, I want to get back to you. I do believe that we start our full our sweeping around the same time we're doing our potholes, which is, I believe, like the second or third week of April. But I can get back to you to be 100% sure.
Okay, so for the citizens watching this, so you're telling us right now, your estimation is that it's going to start, regular street sweeping will start sometime in early April.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's what I believe it to be.
And then you need to tell us how frequent that will be. And then secondly, with regard to pothole repair, and I told Frank Williams this morning when I saw him, I can't recall in a very, very long time, when our streets were in this bad a shape. This was a horrible winter with this freeze cycle that we experienced. So we got, even my own street, I'm looking at the potholes on my own street. But I want to make sure that when we come in here and we do it, if you don't, and this is what I've said to Frank, and I'm going to say it again at the table, if you don't clean out these holes with all the debris in them, and you just throw hot asphalt in there, we're wasting our time.
Absolutely.
These holes have got to be cleaned out. Like I see them in the suburbs with these blowpipes and these tools. We got to do this right, and if we do it right, then we don't have to keep coming back in to do this. All I'm saying, I'm hoping you're prepared when you start this pothole repair, that we're going to do it in a systematic way, that it's done right, that council is not on the receiving end of massive complaints about why didn't they clean out the hole, why did they leave all this debris, water, dirt, et cetera, in these holes. I'm just stating that for the table and for your benefit here, because we got a problem out there.
Sure.
And when you sent me the list for my ward of F and D rated streets, I totaled it. 12 million. 12 million. And what Am I getting what was the recommendation from the administration on funding for the award? $682,000. So they taught me how to count at Collinwood High School, okay? So all I know, and all my other colleagues are saying the same thing, we got a tremendous problem out here.
Absolutely.
So pothole repair is going to be critical this year, more than ever before. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, just to respond to the councilman, and we totally, and I know, I will say this, that we have actually took some steps to try to get more labor to be able to help us jump on the potholes sooner.
Okay.
We are pressing the asphalt companies to be able to open up sooner. I do
Okay.
believe that I think they are probably going to open maybe a week or so earlier. We are soliciting about maybe 20 or so more folks, actually from the Division of Waste, to be able to help us, bring them over.
Okay.
To help us try to get on top of these. I will say that as far as the quality of the work, our folks know, our tempers know that they should blow out holes. They should clean those holes. They know the process. And so
Okay.
we will definitely make sure that we are on top of that, providing
Thank
quality
you.
service for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Interesting. All right, that's good information. But by the way, that 600 number is going up a little bit. So we'll get those numbers real soon.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd
Thank
be
you,
great.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman. I appreciate your advocacy on behalf of City Council to deal with the pothole problem in
But
the
it
city.
still ain't enough. But
Right.
we getting a little bit more though.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you though.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, take it.
All right. Next up is ordinance number 303-2025 as amended by council members Conwell and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to supplement ordinance number 549-2023 passed May 22nd, 2023 to add new section 10 relating to a grant from Ohio EPA for operation of Division of Air Quality to add authority to enter into a contract with Teledyne API for the purchase of air monitoring equipment. Director, there is an amendment. It says there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in the title, line 3, strike 10 and insert 5A, dated 3/19/25 by Kevin Roberts, Chief Assistant Director of Law. Director.
To the chair, thank you. So this is just amending previous legislation to allow us to enter into contract with Teledyne, which does this advanced air quality monitoring equipment on behalf of the Ohio EPA.
Thank you. Councilman Conwell, this was heard in your committee?
Yes, I move for it to be approved, and committee members as well.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 303-2025 stands approved. Please sign on. Next up is HR. Where did he go? Better come on, or he'll be coming back next week. Thank you. And we are going to follow up with the smokehouse legislation. It's just a lot of planning stuff that we got to go through. Yeah, it's just a lot of different stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is sense of urgency. I just want to make sure we clear up all the planning stuff. Okay. All right. Ordinance number 389-2025 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the Cleveland Patrolmen's Association, patrol officers, and to amend Section 55 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021, as amended relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Thanks, Chairman and Committee. Yes, this piece is to ratify the collective bargaining agreement reached between the City of Cleveland and the CPPA, the patrol officers, and then amend the pay band legislation to incorporate the new wages associated with the CBA. Just some key notes in this contract were the incorporation of the midterm bargaining provisions reached, which we think are certainly going to continue to help our recruitment and retention of police officers in the City of Cleveland. including but not limited to a higher pay level for those who have served in the armed forces following their training, additional pay for individuals that have college degrees as soon as they get out of the academy as well. The ability to rehire police officers that have left, back into the force at their former rate of pay and rank. And then an additional one is to reimburse for any OPATA training that they've received prior to joining us and joining the academy. So those are some of the main highlights in addition to what was provided on the executive summary to you. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
So first of all, thank you. I want to make sure that I set the tone. Council does not negotiate these contracts.
Right.
We do not hire, we do not fire, we do not
Deploy.
deploy, and we do not negotiate contracts. So there have been requests by various groups to try to get us to probe into these contracts a little bit more. I just want to make it clear to the listening public that we don't do that. We ratify contracts unless it's something very egregious. Typically, we have not, held a contract or anything else. So I want to make that clear. But I do have some questions that I want to make sure that we bring up with you. When we were looking at recruitment, we were looking at we need to diversify the group of people that we're bringing onto the force. That this whole militaristic approach was not necessarily the only officers that we needed, that we also needed people that understood good problem solving and people that understood how to, be college educated and how to deal with some of these issues. Was that taken into consideration, or are we still having incentives for mainly military?
To the chair, so there also is incentives for education as well.
Okay.
So that piece is added. And we did keep the military piece is in there as well, but we're trying to reward both sides.
Okay, good. What legal guidance or what did you guys look at from the Cleveland Police Commission? Did they look at anything, or did they have any oversight of this, since they're supposed to be the oversight arm of the police department? Or did the monitor have any oversight or look into this at all to make sure that whatever we're doing in these contracts, that it complies with what we're trying to see with the consent decree?
To the chair, so we had our counsel ensure that we were complying with any aspects of the consent decree, but we did not have direct oversight or participation with either the CPC or the monitoring team. As per our normal bargaining process.
Okay. All right. The only thing that I want to make sure is the last question. The other unions are going to want this. And I know the finance director is not here. You're not here. And I know we're not in a negotiating standpoint. But just out of strategy, why do we do police first? Usually you try to do some of the smaller unions and then work your way up to the police. Because if you set the bar high, then everybody's going to expect that. So what made a change in your negotiating this time?
To the chair, generally the bargaining strategy is you start with the larger unions, but there's definitely a distinction between conciliation units or first responder units and non-conciliation units as it relates to collective bargaining. But even though we reached a certain agreement with CPPA, does not mean that's going to be a blanket across the board.
Interesting.
And I guess just to emphasize that the next contract I'll be bringing forth which is actually another first responder unit. Well, it's it's not a first responder unit, but it's a safety forces unit, is less than this.
And I know that Councilman Polensek probably has more, well, not probably, has more history than all of us here, but I dare to say that in 2004, we had a mayor who gave very generous salaries to the police department. Once those salaries came in and we ran into a recession or ran into a major issue, 222 of those police officers got laid off. So I'm happy that everybody's getting paid. I just hope that we are not putting ourselves in a position where at some point in time we won't be able to afford it. So that's my only concern, but I digress. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the director. Just to dovetail on the council president, what you did, in my opinion, obviously, you've set the pattern. And I've already gotten calls from other bargaining units. And in public safety, they're going to expect the same thing. So let's not kid anybody here. The pattern has been set, and you can't say to someone picking up garbage or repairing streets that they're not going to be entitled to the same type of pattern. That's just the reality. I've been here a long, long time, so I can tell you the realities confronting the administration and confronting the legislative body. So that being said, that's the reality. My bigger question is this. If you can provide to me a more detailed breakdown of the parts of this contract, because I've already gotten calls from the CPC and others about about the federal oversight and the CPC and all this good stuff. So I'd like to see all the major components that were agreed to. In fact, I might ask you to come to the safety committee table with the safety director, with the chief, maybe to explain in greater detail some of the components. At any time during the course of the negotiations, did the issue come up with regard to body cams on off-duty officers? Wearing body cams that are working off-duty but in police uniform?
Through the chair to the councilman, not to my knowledge, but I wasn't at every
So
negotiation
who
session.
negotiated? Who were the negotiation team?
Through the chair, the first chair negotiator is Pat Hoban with Wilkins. We use outside counsel as first
Okay,
chair.
so it was all outside counsel that did negotiating?
In addition to certain members of our team.
And who was the
internally.
certain members of the city team?
Through the chair, it would usually be chief of police, either myself or the assistant director.
Okay.
And then sometimes others,
Okay,
as needed.
so I'm going to discuss this with the council president. I might ask you to come to the table to explain in greater detail the contract in general, so we have a better understanding. Because I understand the historic posture of that once, as the council president so eloquently said, we don't hire, we don't fire, we don't deploy, we don't administer. So the viewing public, we don't negotiate contracts. We're prohibited by law. But we have to ratify, the body has to ratify the contracts once the administration and the collective bargaining unit vote on it. But I think I want to, in light of the federal monitor, in light of the CPC, I want to get a better understanding as to what was actually agreed to, the fine print, what was actually agreed to. We know that's 33 and 3. That's a given. Again, I'll say again, Council President summed it up. The pattern has been set, and I think to deviate from that pattern, there will be a problem across the entire city. I can tell you that right now from what I'm already hearing. So let's be realistic here. And again, I hope the administration is planned for that and is prepared for that. So I'll leave it at that. I'll look forward to working with, I'll talk to the council president, look forward to talking to you and the administration as to when I can bring it to the table, the safety committee table. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I support this legislation. I just wanted to make a note. As we had a long discussion in our budget hearings, a balanced budget is recurring revenues on recurring expenses.
That's right.
We can't get outside of that.
That's exactly.
So I don't think it's appropriate for this council to put any pressure on this director on what patterns should look like. Okay, I think it is the director and the teams at the administration, as Councilman Plunsick noted, we're not involved in that negotiation, need to be looking at each and every historical increase or equity that each bargaining group has received and where they're at from benchmarking other municipalities. I mean, we need to be looking, in my opinion, just one I'm not involved in the negotiation, but the director, I would imagine, and his team, we should not be putting pressure on him to do anything else but to professionally look at each unit individually. I just want to say that. Because a draconian blanket, everyone has to get X, Y, or Z is not a good way of doing business. It is not a good way of stewarding taxpayer dollars. And folks may be at that rate or above it or below it or whatever it might be. My point is that we've got a professional team here, and we should not be putting pressure on them to do anything else besides analyzing each unit individually, again, based on what the historic trends have been, what historically have we done. Maybe certain units need different, whatever it might be. My point is that we have to draw within the lines of our budget here, and I don't want to put any pressure on this director to do anything else than look at each unit as he should for the individual circumstances in which they sit in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing this develop. And the one thing that I do want to make sure is that I'm not sure how this aligns with the CPC and the federal consent decree, but I just I'm interested to make sure I get an opinion from the legal counsel to understand how that oversight is supposed to be. Because in my opinion, I don't think that they have the authority to oversee a contract either. I know that they give guidance on GPOs and other things, but that's one of the things that was debatable during the issue 24 conversation is if we are appropriating dollars and passing legislation, then what and how are we supposed to interact with the police commission? So I hope that this calls the questions so that we could get clarification on that, because that was part of my concern during that process, is that we are the fiduciary agent and legislative body for the city of Cleveland. So we're performing our duty, and hopefully they feel like they've gotten their opportunity to perform their duty. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding ordinance number 389-2025? All right. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Let's go to Conwell. Conwell has two pieces. Kevin Conwell Day. All right, first one is resolution number 333-2025 by Councilmember Conwell, Starr, House Jones, Slife, Kelly, and Griffin. An emergency resolution strongly encouraging the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to install school bus stop arm safety cameras that will capture drivers who fail to stop when the bus stop arm is out and pass school buses that are loading and unloading children. Councilman Conwell.
Thank you very much. You know, in this city, and I know Councilmember Mike Polinsky and I always talk about it, that's one of the reasons why we have the speed bumps. People just have no regard for the law, speed up and down our streets. Even when we had this issue last summer, speeding and having fun, they passed the stop signs, no regards to the law. They speed past our traffic enforcement lights, no regards to the law. And then, even our little children, they have to have someone to fight for them. When the buses stop and they put their arm out, guess what happens? The cars will speed around you, and you guys see it on city council. They speed right around the arm. They look to see if someone watching them, and if they don't see anyone watching them, they speed, and guess what they do? They put our children at risk. Our children have to run and to make sure that they're not hit by a vehicle. And it traumatizes them even when they go to school, while they're going to school, because a car almost hit them. With this legislation here, it will put a camera on the stop arm. So when a car does that, go around the stop arm, when the bus put its stop arm out, it would take the picture of the vehicle that just broke the law, an Ohio law of doing this, because it's against Ohio law, send it to the enforcement agency, and then when they send the fine, $250 fine, to the vehicle owner, that fine would go into a fund to purchase more cameras or do preventive maintenance. We have to protect our children. I got sick and tired of seeing things like that, and I looked and studied other cities, even in Cleveland, not in Cleveland, in Ohio, they're doing that as well. They're doing that as well. And the focus is not just on the tickets. The focus is on changing the behavior of the driver to do the right thing and not break the law and look out for our children. So I ask city council members, the other city council members, to sign on this legislation to protect our children, and I would greatly appreciate it if you sign on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. The one question that I have, I think you answered last week. I know you've had conversations with the school district. I believe you said they're going to try to start out with about 5 of these buses and then scale up little by little.
I talked with Leo. Once Leo found out, he sent it over to the CEO that, because the first thing they said, and he shouldn't have said it, we don't have any money. But here's the thing, you always must try to find money to protect our children. So when I narrated to him that when they passed the fines and we set a fund up to pay for the cameras and pay for preventive maintenance, he said, okay, Kev, we'll listen to you. I'll get the transportation supervisor, and we'll sit down and talk with you. Because I plan to also go to their meeting, the school board meeting, and have a conversation about this with the school buses. If other communities, if other cities can protect their children, we can too, and that's where I'm at.
Councilman, I support you. I think this is great. I just know that the school board has their own legislative process, and also the CEO and his team have to actually find the money once we put these things out there. And I just want to make sure that I don't create any confusion, because the greater public will see this as the mayor and the council oversees the schools. And actually, we as council, we can only recommend to them. This can't automatically happen unless we work with them to make sure that they identify the dollars and do this, because they're their independent jurisdiction. Now, to your point, their budget is bigger than ours.
It is.
So if
That's right.
anybody can find money, it should be the schools. But I just want to be careful not to overstep our authority, that we really don't oversee the school board or the school district. But I definitely support you and your efforts. I just want to make sure that the public knows the process of how we're going to have to engage in order to make this happen.
You know, Mr. President, I thought about that as well. Our job is to write laws for people that work, live, and travel to the city of Cleveland. That's first thing first. And I remember when this body supported me 3 years ago, and we said the same thing when I wrote legislation to change the name of the slave schools, like Patrick Henry, to have my people in slavery, and we changed the names because I did not want our children to walk around with Patrick Henry, and we said the same thing, and I sit down and I talk with Eric Gordon, and we changed the names of the former slaveholder schools. And we did the same thing with John Marshall at Cleveland State. I just have to sit down and talk with them.
Councilman, our platform is powerful, and we are backing you with this platform, so you don't have to convince us. I just want to make sure that the public understands how we're going to be engaging, how we're going to work through this process, okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick and Councilman Michael Polinsky.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask Councilman Conwell's permission to be added as a co-sponsor on this piece.
Councilman?
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman
Councilwoman
Santana as
Santana
well,
would like
for
to
the
be on
record.
this as well.
Mr. Chairman, I fully support this. My only question is for the selfish idiots, and I want to say a lot more than that do this, while our babies are getting off these school buses. Selfish idiots is the nicest way, Mr. President, without being censured, that I can identify these individuals that intentionally speed by these buses when our babies are getting off of them. $250 fine does not seem high enough.
Is that high enough?
So I believe that's set by the state, Chair.
Yes,
So I mean,
set by
I
the
wonder,
state.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Conwell, as a part of our advocacy to the state of Ohio or to the district, I would encourage us to advocate to the state to increase these penalties. If you're going to put a baby's life at risk in our city, and I mean our city, but any city in Ohio,
Yes.
you should face higher consequences. That's just what I think. So, Mr. Chairman, maybe as we're looking at advocating locally and statewide, I mean, you should be petrified to do this.
You should be. You should be. And it's our job to protect. We live through our children. We live
Yep.
through our children. Everything that we do it for our children. And it's our job to protect them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had to ask the chair, Councilman Conwell, to be a co-sponsor on this. You know, Mr. Chairman, we saw this municipalities across the country at the National League of Cities, especially the event that was in Washington, where many cities are implementing the same type of action to address the problems. And let me just say this. In all my time here, in 12 consecutive terms, that school board has always complained they don't have enough money. And yet, as you indicated, their budget is bigger than ours. So if they phase this in with the fine and penalty, and if they need additional legislative action out of us, we can do this. But Councilman McCormick touched on it. These are the same people who go through our stoplights, who go through our stop signs, who just totally disregard the traffic laws of our city, and that's why each and every one of us is buried with requests for speed tables and traffic enforcement, because we just have an element in our city who could care less about traffic laws and about the safety and welfare of children. And so, to me, I can't figure out why anyone would go around a school bus with the stop arm out. I just can't even conceive that. But they do. We've seen it. And so I support my colleague, Councilman Conwell. We talked about this when we were in Washington, this and other issues. And again, let's pass it. Let's send a message to CMSD that they need to take this up. And if not, then maybe we need to codify it. To force them to do it, because you know what, I'm so tired of listening to them about what they don't have and what they can't do, and yet when they pushed their levy, they never talked about what they can't do or what they were going to do
until it passed.
Yeah, and so I'm beyond that at this point in my life here. Let's pass this and let's send a message to them. Step up and look out for the kids that are getting off those school buses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
And I see this, it is a good piece of legislation. I see this as a natural progression to what we're trying to do with Vision Zero, and that this council actually put in place in order to have more pedestrian safety. So I see this as a natural progression. But Councilman and all of the people at this table knows, when we come up with great ideas, what are they going to do? Ask us to fund great ideas. So that's why I just want to make sure that we let everybody know the lines of demarcation, because if they come and ask Blaine Griffin, I'm going to reroute them right back to that school board to try to get that money. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Right. You know, Council President.
You got closing remarks, Councilman.
With Councilmember Mike Polensek is saying, when I was down in National League of Cities, you know, I met with a few council members, because that's what we do. That's what we go down there for. And that was the discussion. And I talked with Councilmember Mike Polensek about it with the arms and protecting our babies. We have to do prevention. And when we go to the National League of Cities, we go there a majority of the time to bring back policy. That's correct, right?
Yep.
And so this policy here, I sit back and was talking with some of my colleagues from all over the nation. And they said, Kev, let's take a look at this right here. So I come before us to present it to us in the city of Cleveland to protect our children.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for your passionate stewardship of this and the children in our city. All right, seeing no other questions, resolution number 333-2025 stands approved. Let's move now to resolution number 324-2025 by Councilmembers Conwell and Griffin, an emergency resolution supporting National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month and declaring the month of March as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month annually in the city of Cleveland to help raise awareness and encourage people to begin colon cancer screening at age 45 as recommended by the American Cancer Society. Councilman Conwell.
You know, I've had some friends that passed away from colon cancer. You know, matter of fact, my daughter had a friend, and she passed away at 26 years of age from colon cancer. We have to really watch ourselves. And another young man, last name Williams, he was a worker here, and he died, I think he was 35 or 36, of colorectal cancer. It's a preventable disease if you watch yourself, to my colleagues, and pay attention to your body and take time off away from what we're doing. You know, we spend a lot of times, we receive a lot of phone calls, and everywhere we go, people just don't know this job is real hard. And when I had to deal with colon cancer, I got into getting 80%, 92% of the vote. And when my residents would call me, and it's my fault, I'm not blaming it on them, I never had balance. I never had balance. I would cancel my doctor's appointment and go do whatever was calling me to do. There was just no balance in my life whatsoever. And then when I went to the hospital at Cleveland Clinic for my checkup, my sister had told me to go, and I told my sister, I said, I'm not going to have any, I don't need any colonoscopy. You know, I work out every day, and I don't eat meat and all of this and that. He said, Kevin, just go. So I went. And when the guy gave me my colonoscopy, the rod that he used to test me woke me up. I had a big tumor in my colon, and it woke me right up. And the doctor looked so afraid, he was scared. He sent me to Cleveland Clinic. And my Dr. Eloise looked at me and told me I had 3B colon cancer. The next phase, you're gone. And a lot of people don't make it out with 3B colon cancer. And so I went in the back room, and I cried and I cried. And you know what I saw? I did not see being a councilman. I did not see work. What I really saw, what was in front of me, I saw weddings and baptismals and Christmas and all these true things of life, what it really meant. And you would never, ever see it again. And then I cried, and I started to walk out. I said, since I'm gone, I'm a goner, it's it. And so God put his hand on my shoulder and told me to go in there and face the music. So I went in there and faced the music, and we ended up fighting, and I'm here today to make a long story short. So you got to my colleagues, we get called for gun shootings, we get, people put strange packages on our porches, we get calls, Anthony, for everything. Being a council member, we get blamed for it, but you gotta take time. And matter of fact, you were over community relations. You called me when I was in the hospital. I was in there for a long time. So we gotta take time to take care of ourselves. That's first thing first, because when you do that, then you can take care of the community. Now you can take care of your family as well as the community. You could do that. So I still get my, my side effects, but I'm gonna say this, and I ask you to support me. As you know, I have a band, and we play for free, and we've been doing that for quite some time, playing for free for colon cancer events, for breast cancer events, and all kind of events. And that's my way of giving back, because God saved me, and he saved my life, and many of my friends died in the unit. So I said, I'm going to do something to give back. And when we go and we play for free for Cancer Society or breast cancer or ovarian cancer, guess what? Instead of paying my band, they take the proceeds and use it toward the cause and their mission to give back. So I thank God. I thank for putting his arm on me and around my shoulder and blessing me. And I'm here to see my family and friends for another day. So therefore, I ask City Council to support me on this legislation and take care of yourselves too, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I will tell you, Councilman, watching you go through that and being a friend of yours, even being on council, made me get checked up. And I make the doctor check me every year. He tries to say, come back in 5 years. Like, I'll be back next year.
Yeah, you got to
So,
do that.
Just to let you know, this is a very important message that we need to be sending to people across the city. So thank you for being a spokesperson, and we're so glad you're still here.
And you know what? And you think Mike Polisic is tough too. He was worried about me also. He tell people we almost lost scared.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mike?
And I told Kevin, Mr. Chairman, I said he needs to eat meatballs and some Slovenian sausages. Get off that no meat diet. That's what did it to him, okay? Get that Eastern European diet, Italian diet. You'll be in much better shape.
I hope that somebody out in the listening public has a book of the Polisicisms that he says at this table, because he actually says some funny stuff. Man. Yeah, a point on that. Go ahead, Councilman.
I think we need like one of those commercials at the end that says, "This advice was not approved by a medical doctor."
No, thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Okay. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 324-2025 stands approved. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to see what you're talking about.
All right, last ordinance is, I think we did. Did we do 217 already? Nope, didn't do it. All right, last ordinance is ordinance number 217-2025 by Councilmember Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to enter into an agreement with St. Martin de Porres High School to participate as a sponsor of Students for Work-Study positions with Cleveland City Council. This is a pretty general piece. These are all of the student assistants that we have that do a great job, that work with us every year. And I'm asking everyone to support ordinance number 217. All right, please sign on. Seeing no other legislation, this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is adjourned.